Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Solstice Gateway Summit Insights and Inspiration for 2026. My name is Jill M. Jackson, and I am delighted and excited to welcome one of my colleagues, soul sisters, and just amazing humans to be part of the Solstice Summit. I would like to introduce Kathy Biehl. Kathy lives on the bridge between intuition and the rational mind. She is a professional astrologer and tarot advisor whose work draws on her diverse life experience as an attorney, a small business owner, performing artist, and writer. She approaches all of it with a sense of wonder, keen research abilities, and desire to explore and explain human existence. A prolific forecaster, advisor, and teacher, she concentrates on astrology you can use, blending real world practical explanation and tips with humor, optimism, and a love of patterns, symbolism, and pop culture. She is known for her wit, somewhere between a master storyteller and late night at the improv, her accuracy, and her ability to translate complex concepts into ordinary language. She has a knack for connecting dots into storylines and tracking them from the past to the present to their probable trajectory into the future. She contributed to the chapter on astrology to Your Guide to Self Discovery, published by Llewellyn Worldwide in 2023. She hosts the show Celestial Compass on Times Radio and TV, and she won On Times Media's Best Astrologer in 2022. Oh, and she makes killer salted chocolate caramels. Another reason I love you, even though I haven't tasted them yet. Her website is empowermentunlimited.net. YouTube is at Professional Aquarian, and her Patreon is patreon.com/Kathy Biehl. Welcome to the Gateway Summit, Kathy.
Thank you so much for asking me, and now we've used up half of my time.
No, we have plenty of time. Yes, that is quite the bio. And I love how you have merged the left brain and the right brain so beautifully, and even in the expression of the way that you do your work. Can you talk a little bit about your background and how you went from being an attorney into a psychic and an astrologer?
Well, my interest in the tarot and astrology end of things really predates going to law school. Law school was the decision of a panicked 19-year-old, and it soon became clear that really wasn't fitting my personality. So I started going to astrology school after I started getting working for a law firm, and that was part of how I eased my way out. I've always done many, many things, but I have found that, first off, in case anybody is curious, I'm not the only astrologer attorney. There are a bunch of us out there, and we tend to have a fairly technical streak. And I have found that the legal background really does ground pretty much anything I say to clients or in my forecasts, because I was mostly a business attorney representing small businesses. So I understand a lot about how things work. So there's a level of practicality and groundedness in everything I do, but I still do straddle both. I can see how things are playing out in both ways. And I also think that the astrological information or any kind of esoteric information has its usefulness if you figure out what it's doing with our existence down here on Earth.
Absolutely. They weave beautifully together, and it helps you, as we talked about in your bio, recognize patterns.
Mhm.
And wouldn't you agree that astrology, and especially the type of astrology that you practice, Kathy, you've perfected forecasting and able to really see the patterns and predict the patterns that we see coming in the future and we're going to revisit that in a few minutes when we talk about what you're seeing for 2026. But I just want to give some accolades to you and let everybody know what an amazing and gifted astrologer you are. In my readings years ago, and I believe we've been colleagues now, what, 12 years, something like that. This goes back
Easily.
some time. And even with all the work I've done on myself and peeling back the onion layers and on and on and on, I know that in the astrology readings that you gave to me, it shifted my paradigm. And even especially with the Aries moon, I credit you with that of helping me understand the shadow aspects of that. Because when we can understand those parts of ourselves, then we're able to stay more balanced. And so I just wanted to let everybody know what an amazing astrologer you are, Kathy.
Thank you very much.
Where do we want to go next? Okay. For those people who are watching the summit and thinking about stepping into their own intuition or maybe studying astrology or any other spiritual modalities, what would be your first recommendation for them?
Well, I think that building your link and your trust with your own intuition is really helpful and really useful. And I have found people say, "Oh, I'm not psychic." Well, we all have, you might have a different word for it, your gut, a hunch. And I have found that if you start to pay attention and act on the little nudges that you get, even if they're seemingly insignificant, you're sending a message to a non-conscious part of yourself that you're getting the messages and you're honoring them. And I think it's like it's working a muscle that you're strengthening it. And after a while, it does become easier to detect the difference between the chatter in your head and your own thought loops and your intuition or something that is not your logical mind telling you what to do.
I agree. And I agree that every one of us has an innate intuition that serves us well, whether it be in business, in our everyday lives, and learning to tune in to that intuition and recognizing what's ego and what's higher self and discernment. Wouldn't you agree that that's key? And I feel like that going back to when you said that tarot predates the path of the attorney, even you were born into this life with the quest for knowledge and learning how things work. Do you agree with that, Kathy?
Yes, but with an additional streak. I also believed in fairy tales. I thought they were real. So I'm always, I am serious about that. One of my very first moments of abject disillusion was discovering that something I had been watching on TV was a painted flat. I thought I was on a show for my birthday and all the kids always got to go back to the castle and have a party. And I was so excited. And we lined up and it was a painted thing. So, uh,
Wow.
4 years old. Oh dear, heart
Oh,
trip. Anyway, but I've always been attuned to things going on that you couldn't touch, that were evidence of something intangible happening. Now, this might have partially been a coping mechanism. I have seen with a lot of people when you're in a household where there's a lot of stuff that's not being talked about or things that you pick up, but you're told you're wrong. I know a lot of people who have gravitated toward metaphysical interests simply to help prove to themselves that they weren't crazy. And I am sure that that was an element of it as well.
and thank you for sharing that because so many of us that stepped onto this path of spirituality and metaphysics have had that in our past or sometimes in our present, right? And
Oh, yeah.
trying to navigate this. So I appreciate you sharing that with our retreat participants. Now, let's switch directions a little bit and talk about the winter solstice. Can you tell us how you like to celebrate and what advice would you give to the participants on celebrating the winter solstice?
Well, the solstice is a time, the word actually means sun still, and it's a time you can look at time briefly stopping. There are many ways of dividing up the calendar, and it's one of the two big ways of splitting it into halves. There's a solstice in June, a solstice in December, and the one in December is in the northern hemisphere, the longest night of the year. In the southern hemisphere, it's the longest day of the year, and it's flipped in June. This is a time I find of getting really quiet, of looking at bringing the light within and rekindling it. There were in cultures long ago traditions of bringing green inside to remind yourself that there is a world out there that's coming back to life. And there are other events on the wheel that will follow from this. This time was a time of celebration in ancient Rome. It was a feast called Saturnalia. It's been associated with a little bit of excess, going a little overboard. The Christian church also locked into that to bring an existing vibe into their own calendar, into traditions that people were already used to. But in terms of for us now, just know that it's the beginning of a season, that the energies around the solstice, which is when the sun moves into the sign of Capricorn, these energies run like a background program for the next 3 months. So whatever is going on is going to still be in the air, even though the bodies in the sky are going to move into different ways of being. Now, what's important about this year's solstice is it will be calmer and more grounded than the energies that we have been experiencing in the second half of 2025. A lot of the emotional drama, storms, tidal waves will have floated back out. And my image for that time this year is like on a beach and the tide has gone way out and you can see all sorts of things left in the sand or that were washed up. So this solstice is going to have a quiet, contemplative, now what do we do with all of this feel to it, and this will continue as we cross over into 2026. So essentially, there's going to be an increasing amount of Capricorn energy, which is planning, looking at things incrementally. And there's a nostalgic feel too because of some other things. So the songs I have for people to think about this holiday season are Santa Baby,
Oh, I love it.
and from the Rankin and Bass, I think it's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Just put one foot in front of the other. Kris Kringle sings that. That's Mickey Rooney. Anyway, so those are two themes of what will be going on. To wrap it up, I tend to have this as a private time. I tend to mark it either absolutely by myself or with a very, very small group of people and light a candle, if nothing else, and look at the rebirth of the inner child inside of you.
I love that advice, Kathy, because so many people feel like that if they can't join these groups of 10 and 20 people celebrating the solstice, that maybe they don't even need to take part of it. But as you said, even the energy supports going within and celebrating either individually or with a very small group of people. That's wonderful advice. Now, the green that you're talking about people bringing in as a reminder, I love that as well. I had never heard of that tradition and I like it. So perhaps people could even, if that resonates with them, maybe get a green candle if they cannot find anything outside still green and alive. Would that be something that they could use?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, that's I mean, think about Christmas wreaths, the
Mm,
wreaths that are available with fur, and you can make a static wreath on the table with candles in it and make your own little tiny mini altar.
I
Use
love
that.
that. Love that. And I also love the energy that you're talking about around the solstice where it seems calmer because in 2025, well, actually going back some time now, we have felt like we have been on a roller coaster that never seems to end. So I'm happy to know that we can anchor in to a little bit of grounding, calming energy around the solstice as we prepare for 2026. So thank you for sharing those insights as well. And I love the songs that you've chosen to represent that. All right, so let's just go ahead and drum roll, get into what you are seeing for 2026 and let us know what your predictions are around the energy. And I know that it goes deep, and this is what's great about people being part of your community and part of your newsletter, Kathy, because you give these updates on your website constantly all the time. But if you can just sum up the energy of 2026 for us, that would be wonderful.
It's locking in a new way of being. We had like a coming attractions trailer from mid-July to the end of August last summer. It's like we test drove these new energies. And then starting in February, they increasingly lock into a new way of being. And there are a couple of really big influences that are doing this. Essentially, all of the outer planets, which are generational influences, have moved into a collaborative interplay that's different than what they've been doing in recent times. They've been creating mud until now, and now it's a mixture of fire and air. And the definitive, the defining, the groundbreaking event occurs on February 20th, and it is the meeting of Saturn, the planet of structure and order, merging with Neptune, absolute boundlessness. So we've got absolute restriction, absolute boundlessness at the very beginning of the sign of Aries. They danced together last year and they came close, very close to a conjunction in mid July while they were also interacting with the other outer planets in a way that was showing that the way we've done things isn't going to happen anymore. And in February, they come back together. They're doing cleanup work as we record this. Couple of things about this. We have lived through Saturn in Aries before. He has about a 28 and a half to 30-year cycle. We, current live, have never lived through Neptune in Aries except for its brief time last year because its cycle is so long. And although we have experienced the constraint and boundlessness meeting in together in our lifetimes, never in this pairing. And in fact, this particular pairing dates back to the dawn of civilization. So it's kind of like a reboot. And the two of them together bring, I think, a great potential for spiritual mastery, for feeling energies just rising up within you and knowing innately what to do with them.
Wow, I have chills. That's a
Now,
lot. Okay, I have a question. When you talked about, okay, the February 20th and the different energies, it seems like they're very opposite energies. Would you even say polarity in a way?
I wouldn't say polarity, but they do again, it's boundlessness and absolute constraint. It's mastery and faith. There's a big inherent paradox, isn't it? But it also is at the very beginning of the zodiac. So it's like a raw burst of energy and a new seed, and very much something that every individual can ride on. And there are some people who've been very scared about, oh, this means we're all going to be under somebody's control. I would say, and this goes to the free gift I will offer at the end, I would say that throughout history, when these two guys have fused, more progressive, individually empowering things have happened culturally, politically. I mean, this is Magna Carta time. This is there's so many things that correspond with this. So there is a tremendous potential. I would encourage people to think about what started firing up in you last year, end of March, and then got hotter end of May. And then by middle of July, what new weird, gee, I didn't think I could do that. Thoughts, energies, development started flying through. And now we're in the let's clean things up and fix some things so we can deal with it. And then next year, after Saturn and Neptune meet, by the end of April, we go through a spell where what happened in July really locks in. The other dancers join in. And I am going to encourage people when we get to New Year's Eve, see what thoughts you're having, see what epiphanies you have, see what weird plot twists go up in your thinking and your plans. Those are pointing to just crazy shifts that you'll be living through next year. There's a tremendous risk-taking element to this, or streak. This is not logical. This is not the project managing is in December. All right. That's when you start your spreadsheets, your plans, whatever. But then when we get into next year, it will be like an energy just erupts and you act. And I would be very aware of what direction you're looking, because that's where you're going to run. It will not be, oh, today I'm going to do this. You'll wake up and it's all going to be Aries.
Wow. And I love that you're talking about spiritual mastery as well, Kathy, because whenever we step into our own, and I'm going to use the word empowerment, and that's your company name, but Spirit is giving that name. When we step into our own individual empowerment and embrace the spiritual mastery that we have within, then we can stay more easily balanced in these types of energies. Could you talk about that?
I don't know, think I would use the word balance so much as just activated. This is self-actualizing. This is self-starting, self-actualizing, not waiting for anyone to give you permission, not figuring out the rules. It's like waking up and remembering something you did in a past life. Just innately knowing, seeing a bike and go, I know how to ride this, and then miraculously riding it. It's that kind of thing.
Energy. Okay. All right. So activation type energy and
Right.
re-remembering.
And it may not have much to do with how you lived your life before, actually, because the circumstances of reality are wildly different. And to be honest, all of the astrologers who are opining about this, we don't know specifically how any of this is going to play out. I can just look back at history and see that the big structural parts, we're all going to be fine. But on an individual level, there's something that's saying, what have you been waiting to do? What have you been dilly-dallying, like, maybe someday, maybe someday, maybe someday. I'm seeing a lot of people right now, as we're talking, have a shift inside of them that is giving them the daring to do something that they have to do for years. And it's probably going to take until next year for the stuff to set in motion. And I'm talking leaving dead relationships, moving halfway across the country to start a new career at an age that most people are retiring, that sort of thing.
Wow. I just got chills on that. That's huge. Now, when we think about the energy, and I hear you talking about the astrology of 2026, do you feel like people are going to step more into their own sovereignty? Kathy, do you feel like that's part of this as well?
Yeah, that's like claiming dominion over what you can. Obviously, we have to coexist with other people. The eclipses that we're living through right now are really making clear that we're all in our little rocket ships, but all the rocket ships are flying in the same space field, and we got to be careful not to bump into each other or ram into each other or whatever. But within your domain, so two cards for people to think at about who play with the tarot. The first one is the Ace of Wands. That's the level of energy that's just erupting in each of us. But the second one is the Emperor. And that card really irked me when I was young, but it can be very positive. We are each going to claim dominion over what we actually have dominion over. Like, this is my area of responsibility. I'm claiming this. And obviously, it's not planetary wide, you know, not societal, but there is stuff each one of us can say, this is my responsibility and I claim it. And this is what I'm going to do with it. And imagine what can come from an entire community of people living that way. What could they do communally, collectively, if each one claims their own little portion of it and makes it work?
Profound shifts in the collective for sure. That's exciting. Thank you for sharing that with us, Kathy. And let's talk about your special gift that you brought to the summit participants. You mentioned it earlier, and let's talk about it.
It's a talk about Saturn and Neptune, but don't worry, you don't need to understand astrology. It's called Saturn and Neptune, Who's in Control? It's a video that's just under 60 minutes long, and I talk about the characteristics of the two influences, and then I go through history. This is something I am an absolute nerd for. And I just go through what happened when each of them was in Aries. So we've all lived through Saturn in Aries at least once. Most people, because of the length of its transit, we've lived through several Saturn in Aries cycles. So I talk about things that happened then, what happened when Neptune was in Aries, and then big themes of what has happened throughout history when Saturn and Neptune have traveled together. So this is a way for you, the viewer, to get a sense of, well, I know about that. I know about that. Oh, so, and you start playing connect the dots. And when you get these big issues brought to your attention, they jump out at you when you see them happening in the news. Go, now, it's now. So there's also a way to like regain hope if you have been a collapse in a fetal position, figuratively, or actually in recent months. It's like, no, fire's coming back. Don't worry.
That's a wonderful gift. I'm excited for that, Kathy. Thank you for sharing that. And what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, I have several avenues, depends on what you like. My website is empowermentunlimited.net. I have a mailing list through there. That one has not just my products, my schedule, but a forecast for every week, new and full moon and month. My YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian, and it has the audio versions of all of the forecasts and some other what's called mundane astrology, which is looking at current events from an astrological lens. It's been largely political for quite some time. And I also have two other places. I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Kathy Biehl, where I have one level where you can ask a question every month. And in fact, that's going on right after we finish recording this. And I have daily forecasts that are available from the $1 level up. So it's like really snippy, sassy ways to focus your day. Someone told me that they thought it was like it had the impact of Skeletor walking on the scene, dropping a bomb and walking off. I went, I'll take that.
That's great imagery.
And I also often post a lot of inspirational Skeletor. I have a page on Facebook, Empowerment Unlimited, but also a private group, the Astro Insight Lounge, where we largely discuss astrology playing out in the news and have a lot of sun sign memes. So lots of places you can find me. I am ubiquitous, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's a great word. What are your closing words of wisdom for those who joined us for the solstice?
Be yourself. You really get an opportunity to be yourself in a way that you probably have not felt permission.
I love that. And it's an energy of authentic truth. And don't you feel that we're seeing that play out in many ways in our country as well. It's so interesting to watch and witness the macrocosm and how it affects us in the microcosm and vice versa. But I feel like that word truth and be ourselves, and you feel like we're going to kind of be pushed to be ourselves, which will in turn expose a lot of people that have chosen not to be truthful with themselves and others.
I think it's more like you're the cavalry that you've been waiting for. Each one of us is
Mhm.
just, you're like, oh, yeah, I got to do this. Okay, I can do this.
Beautiful. I love that. That's great advice, Kathy. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us for the Solstice Gateway Summit. And it's been such a pleasure. And thank you for everybody who tuned in whenever you participate. It helps ripple the energy out to the collective. And so we honor everyone that tuned into the interview as well. And thank you so much, Kathy. It's such an honor and pleasure to connect with you as always. And much love and many blessings.
Oh, thank you so much.